Good morning and welcome to this week's webinar. This week we're looking at clients and we're looking at clients are buying services. They're just not buying yours. So I think we need to establish the reasons why buying habits have changed, and we need to say, look at a little bit of analysis of what's going on. So I've looked at buying habits and what those habits have changed since the pandemic. So here's the view from post-pandemic. 93% of customers read online reviews before making a purchase decision. 87% of customers compare products online before shopping in a physical store or for a product. More than 60% of smartphone users are more likely to purchase from a company whose mobile website provides relevant information. And 79% of consumers said they are more likely to purchase a product if the brand provides a consistent experience across all devices. 84% of consumers trust online reviews as much as personal recommendations, and 7 out of 10 customers will leave a website if it takes longer than 3 seconds to load. And 81% of customers are more likely to buy a product if their friend has recommended it. And user-generated content is 8.7 times more impactful than an influencer's content and 6.6 times more than brand content. So why are we using retail customers' data is the first question that I normally get asked. And it's because they're real people. And our clients and candidates are consumers, and the market is creating new habits. And within that are our buyers, our clients, our candidates, and they're all being programmed or having habits to buy in a slightly different way. So they're going to buy our services in a very different way. So that's what we're going to try and look at today. So this week, we've got Paul and Dave. Join us. Paul's just moved. It looked like he was in prison earlier on, but he's now in the police cell rooms, I think, getting interrogated. But there we go. So kicked off with the first question. The first question is: in a competitive marketplace where clients have abundant options, how do you differentiate your recruitment services and showcase value over price?
I think the first answer to that really is, by the way, I'm very aware, I'm very echoey. I think it's to do with expertise. It's a it's to do with expertise. We know from the way the market has evolved, particularly over the last 10 years, that it's all about niche. You have to be niche. Somebody said recently in a conference that Dave and I attended, it's niche or niched. So you have to be niche. You have to know your stuff. You have to be an expert in your market, and you have to be very visible in your market. And that means very loud and noisy in all the right ways around your expertise and knowledge over social media, over your website, over the posts and the blogs you put out there and so forth. And in particular around the things you send directly to clients and candidates regarding your services. You've got to be recognized as an expert in a particular area of recruitment. Trying to be a generalist and do a bit of everything just doesn't work, hasn't worked for many years, and is not going, and that's not going to change anytime soon. So when you're talking about, Howard, how do clients start to figure out who they want to work with based upon the abundant options they have? It has to begin, at least from their perception, of looking around and establishing which recruitment organizations appear to have the level of expertise and knowledge and credentials that are going to be appealing to them. And that means you, as a recruitment owner and as a recruitment business, have to make certain your marketing is on point.
Yeah, I think that's all true, isn't it, Paul? I mean, one of the your question I had was about how do you differentiate? I think take it just a step back. I think it's important that if you are, as Paul says, if you are in a niche area, then you need to understand two things. You need to understand what your competitors are doing, because unless you understand what they're doing, you can't differentiate yourself from them. Some of the things you want to copy, some of the things will be the same for whatever business you're running. But if you want to have something that's slightly different, you need to understand what they're doing and how they're delivering it. And then the second thing to do is you need to ask your clients what they value, because you can't differentiate yourself if you're trying to sell a service that you're not sure whether your clients value it or not. So if you're trying to restart again or say to your teams of people, come on, we need to really make this a year that counts. We want to sell these services at a higher price or a higher value, or we want to deliver it differently. Before you have that question with your staff, have that question with your clients, so you understand how you can differentiate what you're selling.
I think it's interesting. So when I sort of looked at this more sort of from a recruitment point and a client point of view, we tend to either overcomplicate it where we should be simplifying it. And I think clients are now getting inundated with email, social media campaigns. And I think what differentiates you as an agency, besides your service and value proposition, I think it's talking to and meeting your clients face to face. And I think if we talk about, if 50 to 90% of the buyer's journey is completed online, it's the 10% of the journey that we need to convert. And I think it's that speaking to your clients, speaking to your target market, meeting them enables you to convert them, because still 90% of every sale is converted either face to face or over the phone. So to me, that it's not rocket science. People buy from people, and people buy from people they've met and liked. So we're very much reliant, I think, with an online relationship. I think we're very much reliant on thinking that relationship is a genuine relationship, whether it be your online email marketing, etc. And I think we are, we've got to produce more user-oriented content to build that initial engagement stage, and then what sparks the change is that person-to-person meeting or that person-to-person conversation. So I think good old-fashioned getting back on the phone and going out and meeting your clients will differentiate you hugely, because most recruitment agencies don't do that. So stop relying on social media and start to rely on the good old-fashioned meet your clients, because clients want to be met. And one thing that clients have said after lockdown is that they want more human interaction because they've been locked away for too long. So let's push this then a little bit. So could you share then specific examples where understanding and aligning with the client's perception of value has led to successful recruitment partnerships?
I think this speaks to the thing you've just talked about, Howard, which is being close enough to your clients to understand where their gaps are. To give you a specific example, I remember working with a client of mine a few years ago, where we started to support them in a sort of mini RPO model. And they asked my client to recruit probably 8 to 10 people to work in their contact center. I happened to be there when they received this order, if you like, and asked the question of the people I was working with as to whether the people that were going to be panel interviewing with the client had ever been trained to interview. Did they know how to interview correctly? Were they aware of how to select the right candidates? So we asked the HR director of the client, and she said, no, none of them have received training. We offered to provide training. And so I went up, it was in Lincoln. I remember I drove up to Lincoln and I spent 2-3 hours coaching the panel, the people, the managers that were going to be doing the interviewing, and expressed to them how to get the best out of that process so they could select the right candidates. It went down brilliantly. Off the back of that free service, we were able to secure a lot more business, and to the best of my knowledge, they're still working with that organization. So I think you've got to be close enough to the people that you work with to understand where the gaps are. And a lot of the things that we can provide to clients are, from our perspective, low value in terms of delivery. It doesn't cost us a lot to provide the coaching, the guidance, our involvement. But from a client's perspective and their perception, these services have high value and can make a major difference. So I think, to your point, Howard, if you're close enough to your clients to understand where the gaps are, and they're sometimes pretty straightforward, they're not always very sophisticated problems, you can offer those services, which will cement your relationship with the organization.
It's interesting, isn't it, Paul? Because you talked about coaching and guidance. So they're all things that as recruiters or recruitment leaders, we do naturally. And I think sometimes as recruitment leaders, we just assume that our clients do all of that stuff well. And if they don't do it well, there's other people within their organizations that can help them do it well. when actually our expertise really is recruitment of people. And we've got skills that many of the clients that we've got haven't got. And one of the things that we've got that I think does help cement value and help cement that bit that you're saying about aligning the clients out is that we have intelligence. We have market intelligence, we have data, we have our own view of what's going on in the world, but we don't often share it with our clients. For example, there may be a little snippet of something from this webinar. You know, God forbid, in the next 45 minutes, we may say something quite intelligent.
Steady, Dave, steady.
One of the people watching this webinar thinks, "Oh, that's quite an incisive piece of commentary." Well, it's so easy to clip that and send it to a client and say, "I was on a webinar. This is what somebody said." Yeah, and we don't do it because either we think the client already knows all this stuff, or we're just a little bit not afraid, but we're a little bit unsure as to whether we should do that. And I think sharing intelligence really helps cement the relationship with the client. So if you go and see the client, to your point, Howard, if you're sharing coaching, guidance, CV tips, and interview tips, and you're sharing intelligence, those three things together really add value. And if only 5% of the recruitment suppliers are doing that on site to a client, the 95% that aren't, I would suggest won't do as well as the 5% that are.
Yep.
So I think we write a lot of things on our websites about our values. The question is, are we truly living those values, and are we truly user orientated when it comes to doing that? I think those agencies that are tend to get a really good pick up with their clients. And I'll give you an example. You know, one of my clients, he is all about looking after his candidates to the nth degree and making sure that everyone is treated equally, and he's an enabler to work. One of his clients called him up, and he was a temp worker at the time, said that, look, I can't get to work, my car's broken down, I've got a real problem. And he said, well, how much is your car worth? He said, my car is worth this. He said, okay, if I arrange a payment plan, if I can go and buy you a car now, would you do that? And the temp said, absolutely. So they arranged a pay temp. He went off that morning. They bought this guy a car. Unbeknownst to him, the client, the candidate placed that story onto a Facebook group that was full of other candidates and clients. He said he got a load of flack. This is the candidate said he got a load of flack, and I can't believe that happened, until the garage owner went on and said, no, this is actually a true story. That weekend, the client sat at home and he said, I've got 70 plus candidates at the time were as rare as rocking horse teeth, coming and talking to him and wanting to register with him. They'd all been on his website. They'd all seen what he'd said on his website. They said, oh, you're actually following that process. We absolutely do that. On Monday, he had 10 new clients call him up who wanted to work with him, wanted to pay him more than they were paying their own clients. So it's all about that alignment to value and living it. And his social page, his web traffic massively increased over there. And it was all about his mission and how he wanted to do that. And he converted that into actions. And I think if you're living those services and you're living the things that you've put on your website, then and aligning those to your clients, then you will win. If not, then clients just don't believe you. You're just another recruitment agency that's lied to them. And that's what we tend to be branded as. You've got all of these things on your website, but you don't actually do those type of things. So I think if you live those values and you align those values to your client's perception of what your value actually is, then they will follow you. The following question then is, what strategies or techniques then do you employ to continuously assess and adapt your service offerings to meet evolving clients' needs and expectations?
No, I think this comes back to the point you two have just been making about market intelligence. I think a lot of what we should be doing, and I made the point earlier about being niche and expert, is we need to know our stuff. We need to know what's going on in our chosen sectors, and we need to be passing that information on to our clients. Now, in a variety of ways, whether that's through posts and blogs, or it's directly with clients. You know, I've seen this, speaking to clients saying, I've seen this post, I've seen this article, thought that might be of interest, or even providing, as many clients do of ours, salary and benefits surveys and a range of other services that we provide for free to clients. What we need to be doing is providing them with market information that helps them to perform better. And obviously, a lot of that information is relative to manpower. It's relative to the people that they engage, to do with our expertise. And that's about employees, about the recruitment market. So I think we've got to be positioned and be very proactive about the information we collect and the information we distribute to our specific audience, and that's not just clients but also candidates. And if you look at what's on vogue, if that's the expression, if you look at what is being spoken about in terms of the way the recruitment market and our industry is moving towards, it is not just about providing great stuff. It is absolutely about looking at what services we can provide to our clients going forward. And it's not just about market intelligence. It is also around providing support on areas around DE&I, around EVP for our clients. It's around providing HR services, broadly speaking, and a whole range of other areas of you could say human capital subject matter that we can provide support to our clients with. Now, that may be that we don't have necessarily the resources inside our organizations to do that, but we can find freelancers who we can white label, if I can use that expression, and send in under our label to our clients to assist them, experts in particular areas that can provide services under our name. So I think we can start to expand our services. Now, this comes down to your point, Howard. If you're close enough to your clients and you're seeing them regularly, then you'll begin to understand what kind of services and support they need. And I think it's our job to leave those meetings, figure out how we're going to provide those services, and go back with those proposals.
I did a thing, Paul, the other day with a client where I was working with the leaders, or the two leaders, and we got them to ask their consultants. Each of the consultants basically had to write 3 intelligent business questions that they would ask their clients, and they had to be relevant. You know, it wasn't who's going to win the 100-meter breaststroke or will Arsenal beat Bayern Munich tonight. We know that answer. It was literally so. An example: I'd gone to a conference a couple of weeks ago, and there were 3 futurists there. Now, there's a great job title. Yeah, you're a futurist. But basically, the summation of the 3 futurists was that in the next 10 years, 1 billion people across the world will need to be reskilled. So some of the questions that some of the consultants at the desk were asking is, we've heard that 1 billion people will need to be reskilled. How many people in your organization will be reskilled? How are you going about that? And just that level of insight, just that level of turning a bit of data into insight made those consultants a lot more confident about their ability, but also gave them information that their clients were happy to share. Most of the answers, by the way, I say most, there were four answers. 3 of them didn't know. But actually not knowing how they were going to reskill and not knowing whether it was really going to happen in their organization just opened into a different conversation, which in this particular organization, the 2 leaders then took on and booked a coffee with the client. And it was all back to that very first question, Howard, that you raised. Well, what do the clients value? Well, actually, what they valued in that phase was time, was insight, and was credibility. And to your point, Paul, earlier that you made, that when you did those interviews to that client, they've still got the business. They won more business. It was a free service and they won more business. So maybe something that people watching this webinar who've got teams of people, get your business people, your consultants, to ask or to write up 3 really intelligent questions. And if they can't, and don't assume that they can, if they can't, then there's a training need there that you can pick up on and help resolve.
So this goes back to engaging your client, doesn't it? And this is the bit we talk about visiting clients, calling our clients. And I have so many people say, yeah, but I visit my clients often and I call my clients often, but you've called them with the same conversation every time. Are you recruiting? Are you recruiting at the moment? And I think we need to be more engaging and offer more than just recruitment services, which you're talking about there, Dave. So having a better or a stronger client value proposition where you can articulate your services and how they align to help the client move and succeed in their business plans, is exactly what we should be looking for. And I think we've got to start to think that, you know, if we start to think about growth plans of the company over longer periods of time, then it leads to headcount and it leads to changing jobs and things that they do. And so we want to think about how we place the client's brand into the candidate market to attract candidates. But also then we need to work with clients on how we can assist them to retain their workforce, especially in a changing workforce. You know, you've got the millennials and the Gen Zs are becoming more into the workforce. So I think your client value proposition needs to be able to cure the client's issues and influence them to buy more from you and have a longer relationship with you. And it's about creating the relationship, not creating the transactional sale. And the transactional sale is just recruitment, recruitment, recruitment. What you're talking about there, Dave, and what you were talking about, Paul, is about creating an understanding of the client over a longer period of time that you can then move forward on. And I think that's the bit that we miss because we're too busy on the what do you need now? What can I supply now? Can I supply ahead now? Rather than what can I do over a longer period of time? So when it comes to selling on value, then, what are the key factors, or what key factors do you prioritize in your communication with the clients to effectively convey their unique or your unique benefits and services?
So look, I think something I learned way back in the 80s about client meetings, and Howard, you've been talking about this. It's really simple. Client meetings are really easy to articulate in terms of benefits. It's simply this: me boring, you interesting. We go along, we sit in front of clients. We're not there to talk about ourselves. We're not there to talk about our services and the benefits we can bring in the early stages of the conversation. We're there to listen to the human being that's sitting opposite us. What are their challenges? What are their responsibilities, their tasks? Where do they want to be in the next 2 to 3 years, both from a business perspective and a career perspective? Where have they come from? What are their backgrounds and experiences and so forth? Me boring, you interesting. It's not about rocking up with a laptop and showing them this wonderful presentation about the services we can offer. No one's interested. What we're there to do is to listen to their needs, to understand specifics about them as a human being and in their organization. So to answer your question, how do you sell on value? What is it that's going to make the difference? Well, it's different strokes for different folks. There is no one size fits all with benefits and values. You have to be very aware and acutely aware of what the needs and the changing environments are for your clients, and the perception of what is as value for from your client's perspective is going to be bespoke to them. It's going to be what's useful from their perspective. And we'll come, I think, shortly to talk about training and how we develop our own people for this point. But, you know, it comes down to a simple statement. We need to be consultants, and consultants are all about listening. It's all about asking the right questions and listening. The old cliche about 2 ears and 1 mouth, very important. When we sit in front of organizations, what are their challenges? And what can we do that would give them value from our service over and above providing them with great staff, which of course is a given? What else are we going to do to help support them in what presently are very sort of turbulent times? And that then come back to my cliched point: me boring, you interesting. I'm coming in to ask you a ton of questions because I really want to get beneath the surface. I want to open the bonnet. I want to look inside and understand how this engine ticks. And when I've figured out where the gaps are, I'm going to do everything I can to bespoke our service to provide you with the support that you need. That's value. And it comes down to what you said, Howard. People buy from people they like. People buy from people that they trust. And that comes down to being authentically, if that's the right phrase, interested, genuinely interested in the person that you're working with or want to work with, and genuinely interested in their business and their challenges.
I think one of the challenges we face as recruiters, Paul, to your point, is that people do buy from people they like, but in recruitment, people often just buy on the person who's got the right candidate. And the good agencies sometimes think, well, hold on, how did I lose out to them? They're not very good. All they do is throw CVs at the wall. It's the battle that's existed for 30, 40 years. And I think one of the ways around that, because that will always happen, one of the ways around that is to look at that word in your question, had about unique. What is unique about what we do? Because in some respects, for some companies, they may not do anything unique. They may just do stuff that's better or faster or more price competitive. That may be the edge. But I think as leaders of recruitment businesses, you've got to know what your edge is. What is it that you do better, faster, more effectively, more valuable? What is it that you do, and do more of that? Because the more you do of that, the more chance you've got of winning. Because there's always a chance you're going to be beaten by somebody who is has less integrity than you, that is cheaper than you. That always exists, because not every client buys on value. They just buy for speed. But if you understand why they've done that, and you understand your offering as well as you can, then you've got much more opportunity, a much more chance to cement a longer term relationship. And you used the word turbulent before. I think we are in turbulent times. And we said it before, a few years ago, a long-term strategy was 6 years and a short-term strategy was 6 months. Now a long-term strategy is 6 months and a short-term strategy is 6 days. So you've got to accept that your clients are going through that, as are we. So in turbulence, what do your clients want? Well, they will value security and they will value assurance. And if as a leader of a business you can bring them that, you've got more chance of being successful.
I think taking both those points that you've made there, I think we need to understand that it's a partnership, it's a two-way street. And a lot of clients see it as a one-way street. And therefore, hence why other agencies come in and usurp you, because we're not seen as the trusted advisor. And therefore, it's not just about a supply partnership. And therefore, we go back to that value proposition. Your value proposition has to give more than just contingency. It has to offer different things for different positions and different areas. And so if you can't articulate your client service, then how do you align your service to the client and what they need? And therefore, things such as social proof, testimonials, case studies help. And yet so many agencies will have on their website, here's a testimonial from ABC person, not a real person, not a name of a person. It's just Tim from a manufacturing company, rather than the actual name and the company name. So it's proper, genuine social proof. And I think we also need to be a little bit more robust in our pricing strategy. And we need to understand, where our human and our digital resource capabilities come in, so we can price accordingly. And therefore, it's about being consistent. It's about consistently having the same process quality and quantity with your clients over and over again, rather than that one-off hit that we tend to sort of strive for. We need to be more consistent in our delivery, more consistent in our sales, more consistent with our customers in what we're doing, so that at least they perceive the value that we have. And I think they don't perceive us as value as yet. They perceive some of us as value, but they don't perceive all of us as value. And we need to drive that. And that perceived value is their perception of us. And until we change that perception, then we're going to struggle. And it's all about communication, and that's what will change perception. So how do you then ensure your recruitment team is equipped with the necessary skills and processes to consistently deliver high value services to clients?
Well, modern recruitment now, and increasingly so, is about providing consultative services. I think if our recruiters are still trained purely to fill jobs, which in itself is not a bad thing, but if that's their skill set and we're not working on their consultative skills, i.e. the things we've talked about, which is sitting in front of clients, either this method via a virtual method or face-to-face, and digging deeper into the client's requirements and acting as a true and trusted consultant, then we're not giving them the relevant support and training that they need. I think we were saying at the last webinar that when we'd gone to the Recruitment Expo quite recently at the Excel, when you look around the exhibition hall, it's become an advert for SAP. You look at the technology now that's entering our market and our industry sector, and it doesn't take really too much of a leap of faith to recognize that in the next 4 or 5 years, an awful lot of the things that we currently do at our desks are going to be taken over by AI and by technology in one shape or form. That leaves us free as human beings to be consultants in the truest sense, getting in front of clients and truly understanding their needs and requirements. And I'll add that that also is the same skill set that you need when talking and supporting candidates, talking with and supporting candidates. So when we're looking at how do we ensure that our people are equipped with the necessary skills and processes, it comes down to really looking beyond making them capable of filling vacancies, supporting candidates. It's got to go to how we get out in front of customers and truly understand what they need from us. And I'm not just talking about the large corporate clients. In fact, I think, talking more about SME organizations who will, as we go forward, need our services just as much as they've ever done in the past. So I feel that we've got to be looking at providing our people with the relevant skill sets to enable them to be what it says on their nameplates, recruitment consultants, and become those people.
Yeah. I think it's hard, isn't it, at the moment? It's hard to retain really good talent for our own industry because we're in our industry's getting younger. Younger people change careers and change jobs more often, and yet we want them to develop and stay with our organisation. Well, one of the ways of keeping our own people sticky, as in making sure they're staying with us, is to develop them. One of the key reasons why people leave organisations is lack of development. And if ever there was a need now to develop our recruitment consultants to be better consultants, it's now. I guess, Paul, this is going to sound like a bit of a criticism, but when I went to the expo with you guys a few weeks ago, it was in 2024, but it could have been 2020. It could have been, it could have been 2018. I wasn't sitting there thinking, oh, this is all brand new stuff.
Mm.
Yeah. When I went to a LinkedIn event a few weeks ago with these futurists, it was all talking about the future. And that's the bit that I think we need to develop our consultants into. What is the new era of work becoming? How is it changing? What does that mean for you as a 25-year-old, as a 30-year-old at the desk? What does it mean for you as a business owner? How do you help your clients and your own business navigate that? And that's about training, that's about development, that's about reading. It's a simple question in a monthly one-to-one or a weekly one-to-one to ask your consultants, what have you read recently that has informed how you do your job? And I was with a client not long ago who said, I don't think any of the people I've got working for me read much. And that's probably true because in the generation we're in, but ask them to. It doesn't have to be a whole book. It could be an article. Information is ubiquitous, but try to get a development culture in your organization because it will mean you'll hold on to people longer and they'll become better consultants. And that may be how they'll end up with the necessary skills to stay in our business and to help our clients.
So I think to sort of couple into that then, to equip your team with the necessary skills, I think there's a bit that we're all missing here. I think we need to look at our processes and we need to understand the whole process and all the little micro processes that go inside that make the whole process. And we need to be reviewing those processes more and developing them. And I think we, as recruiters, we tend to fail. If you think about we tend to blame the person. Let's look at you recruit somebody into your business, Dave. You're on about retention. And you recruit someone into your business and they don't make it. We tend to blame the person. They just didn't have what it takes to be recruitment. But hang on a minute. They went through your recruitment process and passed your recruitment process. So therefore, that person was good enough compared to your process. So should we change the process? It's the same when we've got, say, a consultant or blaming a candidate for pulling out last minute. Well, what processes did you go through? Did you go through the counteroffer process? Did you go through the interview process? Did you go through what the client was offering, etc., etc., etc.? How well have you sold that? And I think it's that willingness to look at your processes and see what is working and what isn't working, and continually changing those processes in line with how work is changing and how people deliver work, starts to then develop your candidates and your consultants to develop a better relationship, which then gives your client an opportunity to actually buy more from you. And so I think we need to look in the mirror. And I think that's, if we want to equip our staff to be better, we need to look in the mirror, own our processes and procedures, and then train our consultants to improve them, and then be more consistent with our review process to make sure that they are better, rather than just the occasional, let's have a look and see what we can improve. Because we hear it all the time. Why haven't you changed that? I don't have to change it. It's working. Well, it's not working. It doesn't work consistently. You've got to do something about that. So here's a question then that will bring it a little bit further in then. In your experience then, what role does building long-term relationships with clients play in winning and retaining business, and how do you cultivate those relationships effectively?
Gosh, I mean, the answer is building long-term relationships with clients is absolutely critical to winning and retaining business. Well, we've talked an awful lot over the last few years about moving away as best we can from contingent recruitment. I think everybody listening to this will know the frustrations of working in that space, working in a situation where you have no guarantee of making fees, putting huge amounts of effort often into filling vacancies, supporting candidates, and at the end of the process coming out with nothing, with no recourse to claim fees. To move to a different place, to get to a position where you are moving into retained or exclusive business, can only happen through developing deep long-term relationships with clients. Because in the end, winning that kind of business, winning mini RPOs or RPO business or retained and exclusive opportunities, is going to come down to how much that client trusts your business, your brand, and the person that they regularly, consistently talk to and who consults with them, which is what we've been talking about. To get to that position takes time. One of the problems, I think, in our industry, it's always been the case, is that we live for the moment. We worry about Monday starters. We worry about how many contractors or temps we have out this week, what we're doing in this month, and so forth, which is obviously very understandable. But we put a lot less effort into working on relationships which take a period of time to develop. You don't build long-term relationships in the short term. You have to work on them over a lengthy period of time, and for lengthy, read years very often. And all of those processes, those relationships, start with one or two very first steps. And each time you meet with a client, and you should never go more than 3 months without seeing your client face to face, you're developing your relationship deeper and deeper. So to get to a point where you end up becoming the cliched trusted advisor is going to take years, very often years, to get to that position. But certainly it's not going to happen in a few months. So part and parcel of the relationship building, part and parcel of your strategy has got to be working on relationships that are not necessarily going to give you the results that you desire today, but will definitely provide you with the results that you desire next year or the year after, and so forth. So, the answer to the question is, what role does building long-term relationships with clients play in winning and retaining business? The answer is 100%. It's everything. If you fail to develop long-term relationships with clients, then you're destined to working in that contingent space, which, as we know, is treacherous.
It's interesting what you said about that question, what role does building long-term relationship with clients play? I mean, I think it's the most significant thing that we've got. That's what keeps our businesses going. And if we replace clients with individual names rather than clients, a lot of the people we're selling to today will move on to another company anyway. If we've got a good relationship with them, then that business will follow. The most successful people I've seen in our industry have been ones that have built good relationships with individual people and have followed them throughout their career. I mean, I grew up being trained by computer people. It was excellent training. And I was told it was the ABS rule, always be selling. That's how I was told, always be selling. I think a modern recruiter, it should be ABI. always be informing. Always be informing your clients. Tell your clients something new that's going on. Tell them what's going on in the market. Tell them what's going on with your business. Tell them what's going on with what's happening locally. All the stuff that they either may know or they may not, but don't assume they do know. Because if you're always informing, you'll build longer term relationships which will stand you in good stead.
It's interesting. On the back of something that you said there, Dave, and you've been saying for quite some time, I helped build a couple of client acquisition programs for clients and help them run those out. And that was about, you don't have a relationship with the with the business, you have a relationship with the person. And I went back to my old training from CP, and I looked at that and said, hang on, we go from stranger to prospect to customer, hopefully to promoter. And so we've got to start to think that the longer we leave that person, the more they go back down that channel. So if you've got a prospect, okay, if you leave it for a long time, it comes back to a stranger. If you've got a customer and we're not doing anything with them, it's going to go back to become a prospect, then back to a stranger. So we've got to start to think that we've got to really work hard. And Paul's comment is it doesn't happen overnight, but we expect it to happen overnight. And so we've got to start to think about the buying trends that the client needs over a longer period of time and how we can service those trends. And we've got to start to think, and this is my view at the moment, is that a buying client is somebody who's bought in the last 3 months. After that, they're now a lapsed client. And the longer you leave that, the longer you think, they'll always come back to me because we've worked with them, they've all come back to me, the colder they get, the more they become a prospect and then back to a stranger. So I start to think then about each individual client that we've got. In every client, we've probably got a customer and hopefully a promoter. But I bet in those clients, you've got more strangers and prospects that we don't know about because we're not cross-selling and developing in those clients. So I think if we want to build long-term relationships, you should have the relationship where your clients are genuine promoters of your business and moving you into other areas of your business. And we go back to that stat where, what was it? 81% of consumers are likely to buy a product from a friend that they recommend. So if you're not asking your clients that you're giving a brilliant service to recommend you to other people, then there's a problem. And then that links back into what your social proof looks like and your capabilities and capacity to deliver. So I think we're sort of all saying the same thing, hitting it from a different angle, but it's all about taking a stranger to a prospect, to a customer, to a promoter, and keeping them at that level, not letting them go back down that track. So last question. Okay. Paul, I think you started to answer this question, but I want a bit more to it.
Yep.
Okay. With the rise of technology and automation in recruitment, then how do you balance leveraging these tools with maintaining a personalized and value-driven approach to client interaction?
Okay. So, I mean, I think most people that are listening today have used and probably consistently use ChatGPT. And we just keep it in context. I think ChatGPT is probably about 18 months old. It's a really new thing. And what we've discovered from using this particular AI tool, and there are others on the market, as we know, is that what it does is it provides us with time. So I had a client, for example, who said to me quite recently, when we were talking about writing job adverts, and I mentioned using ChatGPT, and I did a brief example, and he said, "Well, I think I could write an ad at least as good as that." And I said, "I think you probably could, but could you do it in 3 seconds?" And that's the point. I think the thing about the technology that's coming in now, and that we're going to be seeing more of in the coming years, is that it doesn't necessarily follow that what the technology does is superior in skill sets to what humans can do. But what it does do is it does those things in a flash, in a moment, in 3 seconds. And that gives us this amazing opportunity. It gives us the gift of time. It gives us the opportunity to get away from our desks, from some of the mundane tasks we have to perform on a daily basis, and get in front of our clients and candidates and do exactly the things that we've been talking about in this particular webinar. Consults. And as Annette says, always be consulting. ABC, get out there, sit in front of people. Now, presently and reasonably, lots of consultants can say to us, look, it's difficult to get out in front of people regularly on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. I've got roles to fill, I've got candidates to speak to, I've got candidates to identify, and so on and so forth. All of that is true, but as time goes on and technology starts to enter our lives, not just in our personal lives, but in business and in recruitment, we will have more time on our hands. When you use that time effectively by getting in front of your organizations, the people that pay your bills, that pay your invoices, and the candidates that reach out to you for support and assistance and guidance. And I would say we've got an opportunity that we've never had before, and that is in a sense that the job that we presently do becomes more interesting, more engaging, more intellectually stimulating, that we start to do stuff for our clients and candidates we've never had the time to do before. And that comes right back to this absolute vital point that we become professional consultants. And that, and we three can say this very clearly, is a stimulating environment to be involved in. It's what we do for a living. We sit and support and listen to our clients and do everything we can to assist them and guide them. That's interesting. It's stimulating. And that's the sort of work that I think we all want to perform within the industry. That's what technology is going to do for us.
Yeah, I think there's three phases in technology, isn't it? We've had that phase of automation where the digital world has replaced the processes. We've got generative AI, which provides systems that mimic what recruitment consultants can do. And then we have the human bit, the culture bit. And I think AI is quite complex. And I think our clients and our own staff find the whole minefield of AI quite complex. Well, if we could get a position on that and understand what it means, that's also something that may be unique to the service we provide to our clients. Go back to the first question about value. If we can help our clients through the minefield of what AI is, then the output of that will be that human interaction, face-to-face meeting, becomes even more valuable. So AI will help us as good recruiters to become more valuable because it's here to stay. It's going to help us do our jobs better. It's a great thing as far as I'm concerned. But the output of it will be that human interaction will become the most valuable thing.
I think I was speaking to a venture capitalist the other week, and he said something very telling to me, which sort of really sort of hit home. And if we look at what I think technology and AI will do, it will take the grunt work of recruitment and leave the humans to build genuine relationships. But what he said was very interesting to me was he said he wouldn't invest in a company that was investing in tech but not investing in its people. He would invest in a company that's got a robust strategy to use their tech. And it was really interesting when you start to look at most recruiters, tech is the enabler to help and move the business forward. But the human is the catalyst that takes the tech output and turns that potential into cash. And so we're only as good as what we actually put into our tech. So if we think that our tech is going to do the heavy lifting for us, but we're not training our staff to actually do that and use the tech in the right way, then it's not going to lift anything for us. So don't expect your staff to use the tech and get the output from the tech unless you've trained your staff on using that. And I think that's the big thing that he was saying, is that too many companies buy tech and think tech is going to do it for them. You've got to train. Tech is only as good as what the people put into tech. So we've got to start to think about how that works. And we've got to think about, if we're going to invest in tech, then we need to train tech. If you think about what you said to Paul about ChatGPT, okay. So how many people have been trained on how to use ChatGPT? So we're getting good things from it, but we could be getting brilliant things from it if we genuinely knew how to use it properly and maximize it. Look at our CRMs. How many people are saying, I don't get much from my CRM, but you're only using probably about 10% of its capabilities? So tech will do the grunt work and humans can build the relationships, but it won't do the heavy lifting for you unless you do the programming to make it lift what you want it to lift. And I think that's the best way I've looked at tech constantly and get the best out of tech. So that's it for today. Paul, Dave, thank you very much. Next week, we're going to get a very interesting conversation. Next week, we're bringing a marketing specialist in, and we're going to ask 10 questions that you should be asking your marketing person or your marketing agency to ensure that you're getting a return on your investment from marketing, because it's still that little bit of, cloak and dagger. How do we get marketing to really work? So it could be a really interesting conversation to have a tech specialist and see what's going on from there. So Paul, Dave, thanks very much. Have a super Wednesday. Paul, I hope you get your interrogation sorted out when you before you disappear. Ladies and gentlemen,
they won't let you out in the country, Paul.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you all next week. Thanks for joining us. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Have a good week, everybody. Bye-bye.